Hi everybody, welcome to this brief recording and user review of the TVS Raider 125. So Kiran here is gonna ask me about all the relevant points which a person needs before he decides to buy a bike. What do you want to go with first?
Yeah, so what are your thoughts about the design?
A little bit louder please, our camera can't hear.
So what are your thoughts about the design of the bike?
Design I would say is a personal choice. Personally for me, I like this design because it was kind of inspired by Bumblebee. So that is the only reason that I liked this. Other than that, it actually has a pretty muscular design, but it is actually a very compact bike. So that kind of contradicts it.
So what about the seat height and ergonomics?
Seat height is among the lowest in its class. So I think it's 780 mm only. So this will be even very comfortable for riders who are like 5'2", 5'1" also. What was the other thing?
Ergonomics.
Ergonomics, yeah. The foot pegs are slightly rear set, so it does have sporty ergonomics. And the other problem is that there is no real grip on this tank. So as you guys can see, it is just smooth plastic. So whenever you apply the brakes, you actually slide forward. So in the end, your leg is sitting a lot more rear set than you actually think it will be. So it actually does have very sporty, not very sporty, but sporty for a naked street bike kind of ergonomics. So this will not be very comfortable for people who are slightly older or people who have back problems.
So next, what about the gearbox?
Okay, so gearbox, I felt that it was one of the weak points of this bike. The gearbox is kind of clunky, and sometimes the first gear it doesn't just go in, it doesn't slot into place. So you have to kind of keep on trying to get that and press the clutch 2-3 times. So and also regarding the gearing, the first and second gear are quite short. So this is kind of what sporty bikes have. But the downside of this is, even if you are at a speed breaker and your speed has reduced to, let us say 10, then you will again have to shift to first gear. You can't just push it in the second gear itself. But the higher gears are quite tractable, so I think you can do around 40 in the fifth gear also, or even near 30, 35.
So what about the braking system of the bike?
Okay, brakes are, I think, one of the weak points of this bike, because TVS has designed this bike to be a sporty commuter, but it has given it the brakes of a commuter. The front brake doesn't have a lot of travel, and it doesn't have a lot of bite. So you will have to pull quite hard to get it to activate that braking power. And also, if you have to pull that hard, you will actually kind of lock the front brake and lock the front wheel. And since this doesn't have ABS, so the front does tend to wash very quickly.
Okay. So what about the instrument cluster of the bike?
Instrument cluster is well laid out. It's very well organized. It has a negative LCD display. The negative LCD display is quite good. It's very readable in bright sunlight as well. But the sensors on it, the sensors which are displaying the information, are kind of iffy. So it displays random distance to empty, or sometimes just random mileage figures. That is one thing about the bike that TVS will have to kind of iron out, and I think they will iron it out as the production run keeps on getting longer.
Okay. So how about the engine performance?
Engine performance is it's what you call a kind of sporty engine. So to actually get the torque and peak power, you actually have to rev it to above 6000 rpm. Below 6000 rpm, you do feel that this engine doesn't have a lot of grunt to it. But as soon as you cross that 6000 rpm range and come into the 6 to 8000 rpm range, the engine really comes into its own, and it's kind of fun, and it gets you used to riding sporty bikes, because those you actually have to rev out, and those have actually much higher rev ranges than this one. But at least it will help you in that initial step to revving higher.
So how about the top speed and mileage of this bike?
Top speed, so until 70, this bike is very good. No vibration, nothing, very stable. But after 70, you do feel that it's a 125cc bike. There is no denying that. After 70, it's quite sluggish to pick up speed. And the fastest I have done in this bike is a speedo indicated speed of about 100. But I don't think this bike is meant to go beyond 80, because one, the braking is not good, and two, you do kind of start to feel a bit of vibrations on both the foot pegs and the handlebar. So there is a bit of buzz, but this bike will do it. This bike will do 80 or 90 all day. The engine has absolutely no problems in doing that.
Okay. So how about the exhaust note?
Yeah, exhaust note, I don't know what TVS has done here, but exhaust note doesn't sound like a 125cc bike. It actually sounds like a 150 or maybe 200cc bike even. But it is kind of hollow, but it's a very good exhaust note, and you guys will get to enjoy it. And to bring out the best exhaust note, you actually have to rev it. You have to rev it to that 6,000 to 8,000 RPM range.
Okay. So at the end, to summarize this, who should buy this?
Okay, so who should buy this? That is a difficult question, but let me try to answer it from my perspective. From my perspective, this bike is really good for those who have the time and patience to deal with its flaws, because as this is a very new bike, there is very limited availability of parts. So even if something small goes off, like let us say you want a new gear lever, it isn't available in the TVS showroom. If you want it right now, they will have to place some order, and there is a lot of waiting time and stuff. So I think it will be ideal for college students, because they do have the patience to deal with such stuff, and they will really enjoy the fun aspect of this bike. If you are slightly older and have back problems, because the suspension is also quite rigid. I tried actually decreasing the preload of the rear monoshock, but it is unsettling the bike quite a bit when you have a rear pillion with you. So the default setting is kind of okay with this, but it is very rigid, and the rigid suspension combined with the rigid frame, it actually makes it a very good handler. So this is one of the best handling bikes in its segment, and even in the 150cc segments. So it is a lot of fun to drive, and I would say that college students and people who have got their who are now just into their first job, they will enjoy this a lot, because they will also have the time to deal with the flaws of this bike and the limited availability of parts. If you are someone whose job depends on your bike, let us say you are a delivery person for Flipkart, Amazon, whatever, then I would say don't buy this bike, because one, the reliability is a problem, and two, if let us say somebody takes this, somebody has a fall on this, and they say now it will take us 3-4 months to get the parts back, and then it will be a very big problem for those whose job relies on this.
So
yeah, that was my thoughts and brief review on this, brief user review on this TVS Raider. I think it's a very good bike. It's a very fun bike for people to ride, and especially for people who are buying their first bike. I think it's a very good starting point for you to get accustomed with slightly sportier bikes, and with a very good mileage of 60, I think you will have no problems in fuel efficiency as well. It is very economical, and it's easy on the pocket. Yeah, so thank you very much, Kiran, for doing this today, and for collecting all those points. Okay, thank you everybody.